Is King Charles planning on convening a peace summit and apologizing to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle before his coronation? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today we're talking about the report from the Times of London, and this is a very well-respected publication that apparently there are plans for some peace talks and that they will have the summit Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are demanding if there is a bit of flexibility on all sides. Now, as I'm going through this, I was reading that article going, what the heck? Did they not learn anything over the last 6 years by dealing with Prince Harry and specifically Meghan Markle? And I think we actually have proof now that doing the apology route, trying to reconcile on the Sussex's terms, will only end badly for the monarchy. And at this point, I think they should just sever their relationship with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle basically completely. Make sure that the world knows that there is a separation between the British royal family and what Harry and Meghan are doing. And that is really the only way forward at this point. Unless a couple can actually find one thing, recognize one thing they need to apologize to the monarchy for. If they cannot do it, the monarchy needs to say, hey, this relationship is no longer working, and for our future and perhaps your future as well, it's best if we officially part ways. Because at this point, Harry and Meghan, they don't want reconciliation, especially Meghan. They want capitulation. They want submission. They want the monarchy to submit to them, to go with all their ideas and deal with them on their terms. However, it's not Harry and Meghan who hold the power, although Harry is dangling that he has more he can reveal in a future book. No, it is the monarchy with the power, and they need to exercise it correctly to get through this crisis. But if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network before, like I said, my name is Brittany, and on this channel I provide compelling royal commentary on the latest news and sometimes a little bit of gossip too. So if you guys want to subscribe, that would be fantastic. We're closing in on 100,000 subscribers in less than a year, which seems utterly crazy. So I would love to have you guys on with me with this journey a little bit longer. And in addition, I will also be reviewing television shows and movies and sharing a bit about history too as we continue to grow this channel. I'll be going to the coronation in May, and I also plan on doing quite a bit in Europe, hopefully this year. So I'm hoping to get a lot of fantastic and unique content for you guys. In addition, I also have a fashion channel, so if you guys are interested in that, I'll have a link down below. And I also have a newsletter that goes out every Tuesday, so if you are interested in that, feel free to check that out as well. It's on Substack, so I would love to have you guys join over there as well. And I also still have a couple of spots available for my London trip. So again, if you guys are super interested in that, just let me know. But before we move on to Harry and Meghan, I did just want to mention we had our first major royal event of this year, and this is King Constantine of Greece. It was his funeral. So he wasn't given a state funeral as they deposed the Greek monarchy in the 70s, but all of his family attended and all the major heads of the European households also attended, with the exception of the Brits, of course. And there was just, I feel like there's just this grand moving service associated with it. It was just lovely to see all the families attend because King Constantine was actually well connected throughout Europe. So his wife is actually the daughter of the former King of Denmark. So her sister is Queen Marguerite of Denmark. And then King Constantine of Greece, his sister, Sophia, married the King of Spain. And so she is connected there as well. So he has these great connections throughout Europe. I think it was his grandfather, somebody was telling me, was connected to the Hanover line in Germany. And so we had just a whole bunch of representation from Europe there, and it was really great to see all the major heads of state. Obviously, this was a very somber occasion, but it was lovely to see everybody there, and there were some very poignant pictures of Queen Anne-Marie and her oldest son, Crown Prince Pavlos. So obviously, the hereditary line goes through the men, and so Crown Prince Pavlos, he has an older sister, but he won't be king because there's no throne to inherit anymore, but he will still be named Crown Prince, and there's also rumors floating around that he will officially relocate to Athens. So the Greek family is kind of interesting in that they don't personally have a lot of money. Instead, they married their money. So in the case of Crown Prince Pavlos, he married Marie Chantal, and her father is responsible for a lot of the duty-free shops around the world. So her family is absolutely loaded. Her two other sisters, they were called the Miller sisters. One married a Getty and the other married a von Furstenberg. And so if you're thinking, yes, Diane von Furstenberg, yes, that is actually a royal title of her last name. So they're connected, well-connected, very, very wealthy. And so they run in very aristocratic circles. And so Marie Chantal, so if they're relocating to Athens, it'll be a bit of a surprise. As I understand, they've lived most of their life in London and in New York City as well. And at this event too, you'll notice that in attendance on behalf of the British royal family were Princess Anne the Princess Royal and Lady Gabriella Windsor Kingston. So her father is Prince Michael of Kent, who was the Queen's cousin, and she is also a godfather of King Constantine, and she went on behalf as well of William, Prince William. So the Brits, and I know some people, I say this and people are like, no. But guys, understand what I'm saying right now. Every European household, major household, the top level goes to all the big events. So this is birthdays, funerals, and weddings. So Prince Edward and Sophie, the Countess of Wessex, they go to usually the birthdays and the weddings, and then Princess Anne goes to the funeral. So bravo, Anne, for taking, I guess, the job nobody else wants. But it is really interesting that generally the highest ranking British royals do not go to any of the major events throughout Europe. So for example, the last big event Charles went to was the investiture of King Wilhelm Alexander of the Netherlands. That was the last, I feel like, major continent event he went to. And I feel like it's kind of sad because you feel like you see all these other European families and they're very, very close because there's only so many people who can understand what you go through. And these are very, very high ranking and I would say closed off and very private circles. And so to be a part of that community, I feel like is really great. And I always felt like it was a little bit, I don't know if it's snobbery. And I know people freak out when I say that, but it does seem a bit weird that they only send, I would say, their third and fourth string royals, whereas everybody else is sending their kings and queens or the direct heirs. The Brits just don't. I don't know why. It's just strange. So I just thought that was just something interesting to bring up. I think I'll include that in my newsletter this week, as well as maybe a recap of all the chaos of Prince Harry and his book release. But let's just get back to this idea and this article in the Times. And again, the Times is a well-respected publication, and this is part of what it said. A royal source who has the king's ear and who knows the Sussexes well believes a reconciliation meeting will happen in the coming months and needs to take place before the coronation on Saturday, May 6th. It's going to take flexibility on all sides, but it can be done. It's fixable, says the source. It needs Harry over here in the room with the King and Prince of Wales, a couple of other family members, some of his people he trusts, who always had his back, so he doesn't think he's being ambushed. Someone like Elf, Ed Lane Fox, Harry's former private secretary, and Christoph Lord Geet, the late Queen's former private secretary who advised the Sussexes. Goes on to say both sides will need to hold their hands up and admit we didn't get everything right and we got a lot wrong, but we have to say we understand the pain you've been through. The king can do it. I have a lot of issues with this. Number one, meeting in the middle. Harry and Meghan don't want to meet in the middle. They don't. They've been very, very particular is that they want a groveling apology. Although they won't say those words, I feel like they want a groveling, all-encompassing apology. And in addition, Harry has said in multiple interviews, he wants a list of the monarchy's supposed grievances against him and Meghan. And I have no doubt he's going to use this list to bring up his own list of grievances and attack every one of theirs point by point by point. Harry and Meghan are score settlers. They don't want to reconcile. They don't want to come together to come to some sort of accord. They want to make the monarchy bow to them on their terms and submit to them and their ideas. And that cannot happen. Not in the slightest. Harry and Meghan in this situation do not have the power, and they should not be given any at all because they will use it to try to basically break down the monarchy. Even if that's not consciously what they're doing, their actions, I feel like, very much lead to the conclusion that they want the monarchy to either fall in line with them and their ideals or completely fall apart. And we get a sense of this in their SussexRoyal.com website. In it, they write out exactly what they want the monarchy to do. And it's very, very specific. And none of it the monarchy can really do. Again, what they wanted to do is that they wanted the Commonwealth countries and the UK government to pay for them to travel the world to represent the Commonwealth on behalf of the Queen. And they said they wouldn't take the sovereign grant, which is a very small proportion of the money they used, and that was mostly to pay the staff members. They still wanted Charles's money, perhaps even the Queen's money, and because they were internationally protected persons and they still wanted that status, that means the UK government's tax dollars and either Canada's or, as they ended up in the United States, my tax dollars would have to be used to augment their security because they have this status. And they wanted to do everything they did as royals, but only the fun stuff. So they wanted to go to a Lion King premiere, but Meghan didn't want to go visit with old people who were at a home for retired actors. She wanted no part in that. And she wanted to do basically all the gala events, all the fun things. And the monarchy rightly said, no, we cannot give in to those demands. It's like if I left my job and said, okay, I'm leaving my job, but I still want to do these 3 things, and I'm still going to do these 3 things regardless of what you say. And Harry and Meghan, again, made the mistake of thinking they had leverage in that situation and they could just walk in and demand what they want. And of course, they don't, because the power always resides with the crown. Harry and Meghan are bit players, and the monarchy very rightly said, well, if you don't want to be all in, then you need to be all out because we can survive without you. And I think that is 100% correct. Harry and Meghan, throughout this interview process Harry's done to jumpstart his book and in their Netflix documentary series, they talked about how essentially they believe that because Meghan Markle is a woman of color, she was the perfect representative for the Commonwealth and that they should basically have that role. They should have the run of the Commonwealth. And again, that was not their position and that was not the power that they had. So the monarchy rightly said no. And Harry and Meghan are still married to that idea. And because they're married to this idea, I feel like they still want to be within the institution. They still actually want those roles as a Commonwealth, as part of the Queen's Commonwealth Trust. And they think the way they can do this is to finally get the monarchy to see that Meghan Markle is the perfect representative of the Commonwealth. And if they can get the monarchy to apologize, then they're like, well, Meghan Markle, she can go on an apology tour to the world. She's a woman of color and she can right all the wrongs that the British monarchy did in the past. But once again, that's not really Meghan's place. Not only, I don't even think she could sell that well to other people, because even though perhaps her skin tone does match some certain corners of the world, her life experience has nothing to do with them. They live either in sub-Saharan Africa or in poverty in India, and her in her upper middle class life in Los Angeles, going to private schools, then going to a private university, and then going on to Toronto to be on a television show, she has nothing in common with them, about as much as Catherine does. So again, this idea that they were married to, I feel like is still very much in their nature. And so they're like, well, if we can get the monarchy to meet us here, then we can get that role back. Because they wanted that opportunity as well, I think, to try to make money off it. They wanted this tour to be something they can make the money off the back of. And again, the monarchy's like, if you're not really representing us, if really at the end of the day you're only representing your own business interests, that doesn't work. That dog doesn't hunt. So again, this all got tramped down. And I also go back to, we heard a lot of this in the Tom Bower book and then in the Courtier's book as well, is that Meghan really wanted to be rejected. She wanted to be rejected by the institution. Perhaps she thought that gave her a bit of leverage over it. I'm not sure. But she very much has no desire at all to be invested in the institution, to actually be involved in it. She wants power over it. And at the end of the day, I think that's what that apology is all about. Meghan Markle truly believes, like I've said many times, either that she is the perfect human being or that she is the woman who's destined to transform the monarchy and modernize it in a way that she feels like fits her progressive ideals and her progressive woke narrative. And the monarchy cannot be seen, A, as political, and B, if it changes, it needs to be a slow, gradual change rather than a knee-jerk reaction to somebody in the Twitter mob, which I feel like Meghan is very much attached to, is this Twitter outrage mob that if something happens, oh, we gotta change it, we gotta do this, we gotta do that, and we gotta change the world. And the monarchy has to be this slow and steady snail. They have to change as the times change, but not change so much that they either end up offending people or that they lose sight of themselves. Because what we see sometimes is that sometimes companies or individuals, they overreact too much, and then they lose their core identity in the process. And then people aren't as invested in it as they were before, because it's like, well, it doesn't appeal to as many people anymore. Because again, Meghan Markle is a radical progressive, and her ideas, her political ideals, do not attract everyone. And the reason the monarchy survives is you can be liberal, you can be conservative, you can be agnostic, really probably is not the right word, but like a libertarian, like we say here in the United States. But if you're somebody who appreciates history, if you're somebody who appreciates culture, tradition, heritage, family, you can find an attraction to the British monarchy. You can see that institution and go, you know what? I don't believe in everything they do. Perhaps I don't really totally want my taxpayer dollars going to them, but I see the advantage that they bring to the world. I see that they try to remain above the politics, above the fray. And that gives them a power and an influence that normal politicians do not have. And their long life, especially the Queen's long reign, gives the country a continuance that the roving door of politicians will just never give you. And they're also a lot more liked the general politicians. Our congressional approval ratings are like 11%. How any of those people get elected to Congress yet again is just mind-blowing to me. I don't know what the popularity rates there are in the UK, but perhaps they're about as bad. And, you know, if you're the prime minister, you have to make some really tough decisions. You have to decide whether or not to go to war, raise taxes, raise interest rates, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of huge changes that can reflect badly on your office. Whereas the monarchy, again, if they're smart and everybody in the family conforms, generally, if you're not overreacting, if you're generally doing the things that you should be doing and not getting involved in politics and stuff, all that mudslinging that goes on in the House of Commons and the House of Lords doesn't even touch you, because it has really nothing to do with you. And Meghan, I don't think, has any concept of that, because there's been a lot of talk that she wants to be a politician and yada, yada, yada. And I just think, she'd be a terrible politician, because I don't think she can, she word salads her way through things. And I think people who are maybe not savvy enough buy into that. But if she's challenged, I mean, the first question, if I was her competitor, the first thing I would ask her is, you lasted 18 months as a royal, you complained the entire time, you couldn't do anything right. Why in the world do you think you should represent me? That's a huge question. And I don't think Meghan can live up to the scrutiny, because we know she can't live up to the scrutiny right now. But there's a lot of crazy in California, so maybe not. But we also had another fantastic example of why the monarchy should not apologize to Harry and Meghan at all, unless Harry and Meghan, again, I'm all for reconciliation and apologies, but Harry and Meghan must themselves come up for the reasons what they did wrong, must come to conclusions of what they need to apologize for. It should not be the monarchy telling them, because A, that's juvenile, and B, that tells me they take no accountability for anything, and they have no concept of what they did wrong. And we see this great example in the Jeremy Clarkson incident. So Jeremy Clarkson, I think he's some sort of television personality. He wrote this column where he talked about, basically he was saying this, reenacting the scenes from Games of Thrones, talking about how he really wanted Meghan Markle strewn through the streets naked and had rocks thrown at her or something, because he hated her so much. And I understand some of that sentiment, but obviously a lot of people thought the language was too harsh. Now, I think it was just a bit of British humor there and a bit of sarcasm, but a lot of people reacted to it negatively. And obviously Harry and Meghan, or specifically Harry, brought it up several times in his interviews about the terrible hate his wife gets. Of course, he never comes to any conclusion of why they dislike her so much. It only ever has to do with race. Not that she has a very abrasive personality that many people come to the conclusion is rude and difficult. But that it could only be racism and sexism. That's all it could be. But Jeremy Clarkson, he's lost his gig with Amazon, and now he's also apologized. And this was Harry and Meghan's response. And I think this encompasses why you should not apologize to them. unless they recognize something in themselves first, because this apology or this statement, I think, is so appalling and really shows how ungracious Harry and Meghan are, how difficult they are, and how it is impossible to ever please them. So this was the response from their spokesperson. While a new public apology has been issued today by Mr. Clarkson, what remains to be addressed is his long-standing pattern of writing articles that spread hate rhetoric, dangerous conspiracy theories, and misogyny. Unless each of his other pieces are also written in a hurry, as he states, it is clear that this is not an isolated incident shared in haste, but rather a series of articles shared in hate. So what does that tell me? It tells me, and it should tell everyone, that even when you apologize, they still want to destroy you. They still want you to bow. They still want to force you. They want you to lose job, lose money, lose all these different things, because even apologizing, they're not gracious enough to accept it. They want more. They will always want more. And that's why the monarchy can't apologize. You can't apologize to them. You cannot reason with people who still, even after being given an apology saying, I'm sorry, they still want to push it. They still want to take everything they can from you. There is no grace in the life of Harry and Meghan. And as a Christian, I believe strongly in grace. If somebody comes to you and says, I want to sincerely apologize for something I've done, I said, all right, that's totally fine. Thank you so much. I really, really do appreciate it. And you move on. And in the scripture it says, you know, if you apologize for your sins and everything, it's thrown as far as the east is from the west. And granted, I don't think as humans we can totally do that. But I think there's this idea too that the best you can, you need to forgive and move on in a healthy way. And Harry and Meghan don't want to do that. They will hold grudges. They will tell you, well, you didn't do this right. And even if you apologize and say, well, we'll try to make changes, the changes will never be good enough. Meghan Markle will still nitpick. Well, you're not still doing that right. Look, you didn't respond to my email quick enough. You didn't respond to that statement fast enough. You didn't pull all these negative articles down that I want you to, because I can't stand it. It's rude, it's misogynistic, it's so many different things, and I can't stand it, and you're not doing enough for me. You're not doing enough for me. But the problem is, and the problem has always been for Harry and Meghan, is that they're their own worst enemies when it comes to PR. Again, going to New York City, throwing yourself, along with your friends, a $250,000 baby shower, parading around Manhattan, in clear paparazzi strolls, loving every bit of the attention, and then complaining that people called you out on it, especially when my taxpayer dollars, and if you're American, your taxpayer dollars, I kid you not, were used to help augment her security. Yeah, they can't do anything to help you with that. Your PR company can't do anything to help you with that. Even if your friends paid for it, the UK taxpayer paid for your security, and the American taxpayers also paid for your security. So that doesn't work. And you could have perfectly held that in the UK. You had a ton of rich friends. Every friend you had there was wealthy beyond means for many of them. They could have met you anywhere in the English countryside. They could have met you anywhere in the New York countryside, and nobody would have ever known that you had this event. But you had to make it so incredibly public that we saw the gift away bags being loaded into the hotel. And that should tell you everything about Meghan Markle. She is completely oblivious to how her own actions negatively impact her PR. And your PR company cannot help you with that. If you do not meet them halfway, they can't help you with that. And that's what the British monarchy came to as well. We can't help you, Harry and Meghan, when you're telling us you're these eco-warriors, and the journalists happen to find out you took 6 private airplane flights over the last 3 months. What do you want us to do? And Harry and Meghan like, we'll make it stop. And they're like, but you took the flights and you've said all this stuff. And I'm sorry, there's just nothing we can do. And again, that is a critical bit. Harry and Meghan are their own worst enemies. In addition, they are unbelievably ungracious people. And they have no willingness to actually negotiate with you. Even if you think back on Mexit. Mexit was a bomb that went off. They just dropped it. Even though the royal family was trying to work with them, they weren't working fast enough. So we'll drop the bomb and we because we think we're so popular, the royal family will just give in to our demands because we laid it out on their website. They should agree with it. It's a plan that works for us. Why doesn't it work for them? But like any business, unless you're the top echelon, if it doesn't work for the boss, I'm sorry, but they're probably not going to make it work for you. So this idea Harry and Meghan have is they are scorched earth policy people. They want it their way or the highway. And in the monarchy, it's a hierarchy. And that cannot happen for somebody who's married to the fifth in line to the throne. And for most of her time in the monarchy so far, she's been married to the sixth in line for the throne. She was even complaining that she wasn't giving the first grouping of Ardem pieces. That went to Catherine first. And she's like, well, she's not queen. Yeah, but she's higher than you. Monarchies are hierarchies. That's even why I brought up the Greece thing. It is surprising when every royal family brings in their either top fiddle or second fiddle, and the British monarchy brings in the 13th and the 16th in line to the throne. It does stand out a smidge. I didn't even count Lady Gabriella Windsor. I don't even know how far down the line she is now. But again, it's this idea that monarchies, at the end of the day, even in the seating order in the church, the monarchs were first, in the first row. Behind them were those of lower rank, except for Prince Frederick, and that I think is because he was basically his mom's date, or Crown Prince Frederick. This is how monarchies work, and Harry and Meghan don't have the power here. And if the monarchy goes along with this absolutely lunatic plan of apologizing to them, convening a peace summit on Harry and Meghan's terms, and giving them a group of people so they don't feel like they're backed into a corner, and really trying to basically give into all their demands, they give Harry and Meghan power they don't need to have. They don't need to have that level of power because they are not the heirs to the throne. They do not need something like that because it's not for them. They are lower ranking royals and they should be treated as such. And Harry might say, well, I can release more. But yeah, Harry, but I'm sure the royal family also has a ton on you. And despite your claim that Meghan Markle has, quote unquote, no skeletons in her closet, I kid you not, he actually said that, I'm sure they have a crap ton on her as well. And they may release it if they feel like, hey, you're trying to back us into a corner. You may think you have stuff. And just to think about it, guys, the stuff Harry released, trying to show the monarchy in a bad light, really didn't work to a certain extent, especially when you consider the bit about Meghan and Catherine in the lip gloss. I actually honestly think Catherine comes out way ahead because she's not an unhygienic, creepy person. And Harry's saying, well, William broke my necklace. And he's basically saying he's a wimp who lost in a fight with his big brother. I mean, come on, if that's the worst Harry can dish out, I don't think the British monarchy really has all that much to worry about. And I hope they're smart enough to realize that. I hope they're smart enough to realize that we are the crown. We have the power. And as best as we can, we need to limit the impact of Harry and Meghan. And again, that's why I say, I am all for stripping the titles and I'm all for stripping their place in the line of succession. This is not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. And the more the British monarchy gives into Harry and Meghan, they have to say, hey, you can come to every official family event. We want you there. We're fine with you there. But you cannot have these titles anymore. You don't live here. You don't want to live here. Harry even said that. And you really just don't have any connection to the crown, especially your children. We really can't give this into you. We cannot allow you to have this foothold. I hope Charles is strong enough for that. I think William is, but I think Charles, and I completely understand. He wants to have a relationship with his son. But unfortunately, Charles, right now, I think you have to think of Prince Harry as somebody who's maybe in a cult. And in my opinion, you need to do the things you need to do to protect and insulate yourself. And just pray for him. Pray he comes back. But it's not your job to protect him. He's his own man now. And if he wants to go off a cliff in terms of PR, that's his choice. And you maybe have to let him do it. And perhaps at one point he will be the prodigal son and come home. But again, that has to be his decision. And you can't make it for him. And the faster you realize it, I think the better off you'll be. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of that article about the peace talks. Very interesting stuff. And guys, so again, thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.